So good morning. Thank you for taking the time to join us for Vandis's webinar with our partner Deep Instinct. Today's webinar, EDR is not enough, Unlock the Power of Prevention, will be led by Deep Instinct's Chuck Everette, Director of Cybersecurity Advocacy. Joining Chuck for the Q&A discussion is Vandis's cyber expert, Jamie Silver, Security Engineer. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone that this webinar is being recorded. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the chat window, and we will either address them as we go or at the end of the session. We also have a few polling questions today. The polls will appear in the chat, so please have that open on the side of your screen. Just a quick reminder, if you'd like to see other Vandis events, visit vandis.com/events for a list of those other events. For those of you who are new to Vandis, we provide managed services and IT solutions to optimize the security and performance of network infrastructures, both on-premise and in the cloud. For over 38 years, from mid-market to enterprise clients, Vandis has delivered comprehensive strategies for secure IT infrastructures. By attending today's webinar, you should walk away with an understanding of how a prevention-first approach to stopping ransomware and other malware is possible using the world's first and only purpose-built deep learning cybersecurity framework. It is now my pleasure to turn it over to Chuck.
Thanks, Joni. I appreciate that. So, T, what we're going to start off with here first is we're going to do a poll first. I want to see how comfortable you are with your current ransomware malware solution. Joni, if we can kick that off. Perfect. Give it a few minutes here or a few seconds here for results to come in. Just give it a little bit more here for you guys' response. All right. Looks like we got most of the responses in, so which is good. Everything kind of falls kind of right in the middle there, which was kind of expecting. So we'll dive into this, guys. So everyone, thanks for joining us here. My name is Chuck Everette. I am the Director of Cybersecurity Advocacy here at Deep Instinct. Basically, I am company spokesman. I also write for Forbes, Dark Reading, SE Magazine, from a vendor neutral, talking about cybersecurity as a whole. I'm very passionate about it. Been doing this for way too long. I've been in IT and cyber for about 25 years now. My career is started off in the manufacturing side, then I went into financials. I ran a 60-person SOC that managed about 80% of the United States banking traffic. I worked with a lot of three-letter agencies over the years, governments, and Fortune 100, Fortune 10 companies over the years of providing cybersecurity advice and direction from there. So bottom line is I've been here doing this. The reason I'm at Deep Instinct is I was actually approached by them 5 years ago. And I was told about this grand product of stuff it can do that nobody else can do. And to say I was skeptical was an understatement. I actually was cornered by our CEO, Guy Caspi at Black Hat 5 years ago. Sat down with him, talked with him. After about 2 hours of talking, I was convinced, hey, let me take a look at this. I said, if they can even do a fraction of what they say they can. Needless to say, I took a week, I tore it apart, signed an NDA. And while then, 5 years ago, the product was still immature, it still could do what they said it could do. And hence, 5 years later, I'm still here as the company's grown and expanded from there. So just kind of give you an idea of my background, what I've been doing, and why I'm here at Deep Instinct. It's kind of really important to show that the technologists like myself, I am one that it's really about, ethics and security. We have to be able to do what we say we can do. when we're selling and when we're working with clients. And so to me, that's utmost important. And that's why I'm here, because this product has a unique offering that nobody else has, and we can do it better than others. And my intent here is to kind of show you that. But along this path, I really want to talk to you about the differences and what's going on today compared to even just 2-3 years ago of how the threat landscape's changing. And so we'll kind of talk through that, and then why the current solutions today don't seem to be meeting the expectations of the clients out there. Why are we still seeing, hit in the media, all of these larger companies being hit continuously? And as I go through my talk here, Jamie, who's on here too, the cybersecurity expert from Vandis, they're going to be jumping in, and he'll be, we'll be kind of going back and forth. Also, too, guys, this is kind of collaborative. I want your questions coming in. Send your questions into the chat. We'll answer those as we kind of go along, but also at the end, we'll really dive into those. So any questions pop up, go ahead and jump in. So let's talk about the evolving threat landscape, how things have kind of changed. One key stat here I want to share with you is 80% of successful breaches that we hear about today and that we see are from new or unknowns or 0 days. Basically meaning that they haven't been seen before. They haven't been mapped by other solutions, machine learning, and they're getting through because of the sophistication of the attacks. They know how to bypass the solutions out there today. Of those, 68% of those that are getting through are actually hitting the endpoint. They're endpoint attacks. So that's a key thing there too, of that it already means that, firm believer in security in depth, having multiple layers. It's showing that all your other layers are failing, and then they're getting to the endpoint, and that's where the successful attack comes from. Of those then, 53% of those end up being ransomware attacks in one way or another. So as they get in, they hit the endpoint and it becomes a ransomware. So we all heard about, there's been a huge increase in phishing emails since the pandemic started. That's still kind of the preferred method of a lot of these ransomware gangs because it's the easiest, because it depends on the human factor. Key thing here too is once you've been hit, there's a 77% chance you're going to get hit again. We've seen some major corporations out there, one in the travel industry, one of the cruise lines. They've publicly said they've gotten hit 3 times. They've actually gotten hit 5. It's because once they get in, they put backdoors in and they come back again. And a lot of times what they'll do is they'll sell the information that they have on the dark web to other malicious actors who will come in and basically start picking up the scraps. And that's where we start seeing some of the double, triple, quadruple extortion, where there's reports now they're actually going after some of the passengers because they got passenger data saying, hey, you could afford a $7,000 cruise. You can afford to give us $2,000 to not share your medical information out there, or go on social media and do this. So we're seeing that over and over again. So it's a combination of new threats, but also the evolving, your attack surface is growing. So we're seeing, digital transformation, hybrid environments. People are moving to the cloud. We're seeing during those cloud migrations, a lot of clients, they're leaving their infrastructure behind. They're leaving their old servers up and running in their data centers, which was nice and secure. You had your 4 walls. They're leaving it behind and they're moving to the cloud. They want to leave that as a backup, or hey, that becomes their cold backup solution or hot backup solution. We're finding that they're not doing the care and feeding of that old system. There's a large Fortune 100 company just 2 months ago, they got hit because they had left their old Exchange server up and they had migrated to Office 360. And when they went to the new Office, they left it up and running, but they weren't patching it. So the Exchange vulnerabilities that came out last year that were patched in March, July, and September, they didn't do it because they'd forgotten about it. Part of that reason too was because of the shortage of security professionals right now. We're seeing a massive turnover of security professionals leaving and going someplace else, or a lot of them are just actually retiring. They're getting burnt out because they're being asked to do too much. Well, with that, a lot of times your subject matter experts, the people that know your systems, are walking out the door. New people are coming in and old systems are being forgotten about. Or as things got moved to the cloud, your security controls that you have in your data center, your 4 walls, aren't being applied to the cloud. And so your security controls are lacking in both directions. Remote work. Latest numbers that we just got was 25% of the largest companies out there are keeping remote work. They're expanding on it. They're going to be going out, and some of them are like 50% of their workforce now will be remote because it's been successful and they got stuff in place. That right there expands the attack footprint so much, because a lot of these remote workers, they're at home on dirty infrastructure, meaning that they're there with their families, their spouses, or their kids. And a lot of times their targeted gets on and it jumps onto their system because it's on the same dirty network. And then it jumps through. Unless you have the proper processes in place, as well as the hardware and VPNs, those type of things, a lot of that goes straight through. And that's a major issue that we're seeing out there. Said it's no longer your four walls. You've gotten into the cloud. You've let third-party vendors come in now because you can no longer access your data center during the COVID pandemic, those type of things. So you've opened up more holes. Well, when the vendor leaves or somebody in that company leaves, how do you know that they didn't take their access with them to someplace else, or they've sold it? What security controls are you putting in place? Look at the Colonial Pipeline. That was a former employee. His VPN, they never shut it down. Credentials got compromised, and they got in through there. Do you have 100% control of your existing data center as well as your new? Where's your documentation? Is everything else? So again, this is just emphasizing, the threat landscape is changing, but also too, your attack surface is growing. Key thing here too is we talk about data at rest. Data at rest is basically where your data is sitting. Before, it used to be in your data center. It used to be on your employees' machines that were in the office. Now they're at home. They're downloading to their systems. A lot of times employees don't want to log into VPN, so they'll pull more data down. Is that secure? Now they're also using shadow IT. They're firing stuff on the backside, saying, hey, let me share this with you. It's unencrypted. I don't want to log into VPN. You don't have access, and they're sharing it from there. Controlling that data, where it's at, where it's transitioning through, where it's coming from. Huge risks out there. Let's talk about some malware trends, what we're seeing. A lot of people always talk about, ransomware is the biggest thing out there. Well, it's only kind of the end result. Things are coming in through viruses, through worms, miners, and then once they get in, they put these backdoors in, they put droppers in. The droppers are typically the ones that really come in and start dropping that ransomware and other items in place. And so stopping those initial attacks is more critical. Everybody always, focuses on the ransomware. The ransomware is just the after effects of other things getting in, because a lot of people aren't focusing on that. And then a lot of times too, they'll go through and they'll drop in spyware to continue putting in, saying, okay, what credentials I can steal, where can I expand from here, and go from there. All right, let's talk about vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities right now is one of the, beside from phishing, but a phishing attacks, a lot of times they actually utilize vulnerabilities. They get somebody to click on something, and then what they're doing is they're looking for that way in. So somebody clicking on something, or even a vulnerability that's open from the web. We're seeing these more and more come up out there. Almost, weekly we see Chrome has a critical update. Microsoft's constantly being hit. Everything kind of starts back from, SolarWinds was a big one. Any government agencies, there's a vulnerability there. They went in, they actually installed their own patch and kind of maliciously dug in even deeper. These are supply chain attacks. These basically mean that they're going after the largest pool possible to get to many systems as possible. Kubernetes, an automated workflow process. Tesla got caught with this one, but it wasn't because of vulnerability, but because they had left, admin out there on a web-facing server. Capital One got hit by vulnerability in it. Microsoft's constantly under the gun. We already talked about the Microsoft Exchange server, Print Nightmare, and then also there's a new print spooler one that just came out about 3 weeks ago. It's constantly because Microsoft controls a good portion, at this point right now, they're saying about 60 to 70% of all systems out there are Windows based, and then it follows up with Linux on the server side, and then Macs are starting to chew away at that too. Kaseya was a huge one. This is mainly used by MSPs, by smaller folks out there, small SMBs, and it's used for managing software deployments, patching, those type of things. Kaseya got hit 4th of July last year. A lot of background on that, but basically it was a vulnerability. They knew about it. They were patching it. They were patching a 4th of July weekend. The criminal actors knew that, and so they pulled the trigger on Friday, right before that, in order to kind of start hitting those clients. But one of the key things why they were able to get in and get so deep in there was because of exclusions. And I'll dive in here a second. But one of the biggest ones that really hit us back in November, December was Log4j. Because it's built into so much software and they thought it was going to be kind of bigger than it was, Log4j actually ended up being buried quite a bit, deeper in some of your layers, but it did have an effect. Key thing here to note is that cyber criminals are getting faster. When a vulnerability is announced or they get a whiff of it, before we'd see it take about a week before they start exploiting it. Log4j marked a definite transition there. We saw within 2 hours, 2 major ransomware gangs, Conti being one of them, had added the Log4j into their scripts to look for those vulnerabilities as they get access to an infrastructure to get elevated permissions to apply those shell codes. And then within 6 hours, they had already hit 4 additional targets, which most of those were hospitals. So it kind of shows you how fast they're adapting this. You guys out there, we know you have patching process. You can't stay up to date on that, but what can you do to protect against this? Before I mention exclusions is one of the major ways these guys get in, because legacy for the past 10, 15 years, we've had to put exclusions in our software, basically meaning, hey, here's Kaseya's. They're like, hey, you're using this, tell your antivirus to ignore all these processes and all these folders. You've just gone now and put a hole in there. If the criminal knows what you're running, and they can tell what you're running, very, very simple, even with lowered level permissions on a system, they can see you're running Kaseya. They know what you're going to have in there for security holes. They're taking advantage of it, and that's one of the key things that we see this over and over again. How many times that I've walked into a company as we're putting a new solution in place, and they come walking out with this big old stack of paper, and they slap it down on the desk and say, here you go, put all these solutions into the software. And all you're doing is you're making your security solutions into Swiss cheese. I always challenge people, hey, you have your FFIC audits, your PCI audits, your HIPAA audits, all those type of things, your own SOCs. You have parameters and testing around your firewalls. You check your firewall rules quarterly or monthly, depending on your industry. When's the last time you looked at your software exclusions? Do you know who's putting exclusions in place? I've gone and sat down and stuff and found that exclusions have been put in place 2 years ago. Person's no longer there, and they put in stuff very broad, like C users or even $, those type of things. Those happen, guys. Again, from a security perspective, look at your exclusions, but also too, there's solutions out there like Deep Instinct where you don't have to do that any longer. And we'll dive into that. So get away from those exclusions. Talk about malware here real fast. This is actually from Deep Instinct, what we did our threat report last year, what we saw coming in, hitting our consoles out there. Drydex, big, huge increase in this. This is financial malware. Basically what it is, it's targeting systems on the banking side, but also home systems that you're going into banking. They're also looking for cryptocurrency. We're seeing that a lot. Emotet was out there, got shut down, but they're actually back already. TrickBot is that never ending one. It's constantly evolving and changing. Stop. It is a ransomware gang, but they don't hit the news because they're doing a lot of smaller stuff. They do a lot of large quantity, but lower demands and payouts. So people typically just pay it and move on and go from there. Are evil. We know that they had gotten shut down by the U.S. government. They've already splintered off, gone out there. Dark Side, that was Colonial Pipeline. That went to Dark Matter. Now it's actually reemerged as Black Cat. These cyber games are constantly evolving, changing, running through there. Malware families, as again, Linux is definitely upticking. So making sure, it's no longer security by obscurity. Mac was the same way. Hey, you know what? I got this. I don't need these higher end solutions because I'm using operating system they don't attack. Nope, you can see it right here. Linux typically is hitting financial because a lot of financial backbones and systems are running Linux background. So we're seeing that over and over again. All right, some interesting trends and things we're shifting out there. So as Microsoft is turning off some default features, or that by default they're turning it off to help kind of lower the chances of ransomware getting in through phishing attacks, those type of things. And that has to do with the use of macros. Macros historically have been out there for almost 32 years. Excel Macro 4.0. Microsoft turned that off by default back in October of last year to help curb that. People still use it. They turned it right back on again. Well, VB scripts is the next big one that it's being targeted constantly. And so Microsoft put up warnings, those type of things, but they've actually here in the end of the month, they will actually be turning that off by default for any new accounts coming in on Office 365. They will be then going through and disabling that. You have to go and turn it back on again. I can tell you that 90% of the clients I see out there, they go through and just turn that right back on again because everybody uses macros and they don't take the time to look at stuff and they just flip that switch back on again. Because of that shift though, we're seeing criminal actors switching to Python. And they're using the Python Go, which is all included. Most of that does not get blocked. People allow Python to run because it's an easy tool to use. JavaScript has been used, but it's actually starting to pick up even more so now, being more heavily used because these threat actors are always changing. VB scripts was the easy one. Microsoft's starting to shut the door on that a bit, but okay, you know what? We're going to shift to something else. We're seeing that. And just so you know, guys, this report was actually done out several months ago. And now we're really seeing that uptick in trends as Microsoft just announced that they're turning off the VBA scripts. We had already seen the threat actors going this direction. They already know of what's coming down the pipe, and therefore they're jumping in front of it to address it because they're adapting faster than we can, because we're constantly right now in the cyber industry, we're in a reactive phase. We're constantly cat and mouse, but we're constantly chasing them instead of going through and setting up traps and getting them, keep them out. We're chasing them, and that's basically allowing them to kind of move forward quite a bit. Other key one here, guy, is your cloud. You allow connectivity to OneDrive for business. You allow Google Drive. With that right there, they're starting to run their scripts from OneDrive. They're starting to run it from Google Drive. They're pulling their stuff down from there because, again, you have a security hole in place. You allow that. And a lot of that stuff does not get scanned by your traditional, legacy AV solutions out there. All right, now we're going to jump into speed. And with that, we have another poll here. So, Joanna, if you can jump in.
Chuck, can I ask a quick? I'm sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, please. Yeah, Chris, jump in.
On the trends, I'm noticing that smartphones are becoming hard targets. They're easy targets, and everybody has a smartphone. Can you touch on that a little bit? Just what the trends are there with smartphones and using smartphones as the weak link in the security chain?
Absolutely. Again, as we kind of talked about the security by obscurity, as phones have gotten smart, they're actually starting to have more functionality and tying into the business. It becomes launch points. So they've been actively targeting smart devices for that credential harvesting, because if they can get your credentials off of there, they can apply that back to your business and access from there. They can also see what applications you have on there, your emails, those type of things. So absolutely, the mobile device, and that goes from Android to iOS, even though Apple locks it down a bit more than others, to Chromebooks and Chrome OS. We're seeing more and more of that. Absolutely, those are highly targeted. And again, it's what's the easiest thing for them to do. Problem is a lot of the cross contamination there. It's a little bit more difficult. So we're seeing the attacks there, but typically for the larger ransomware stuff hitting companies and that they try and stick to the PC side. But again, it's credential harvesting, and they can definitely jump from that perspective. So
right. Thanks, Chuck.
Yep, absolutely. No, and Jamie, feel free to jump in anytime. I know I kind of get in the flow, so.
No. I will. I think I'll have some more questions from that some of our clients have been asking us once we get into the product description.
Perfect. All right, guys. So looking at the poll here now, it looks like stuff's coming in. So yeah, it's good results. Are you guys thinking 10 minutes, or you really don't know how long does it take for your system to detect and quarantine a malicious malware? And that's a legitimate concern that we have today. So let's jump in here. Let's talk about the speed, and this is where I'll really start talking about Deep Instinct and the direction we're going here. Excuse me. All right. So let's take a look, an example here of ransomware, typical ransomware. It comes in typically through a phishing attack, but it can come in through a vulnerability. It can come in from any which direction, multiple different aspects. So once it gets downloaded, it starts being downloaded, you click on it to start that download, or it starts coming to your system. We're seeing typically within seconds that the ransomware has already began. It's already gone through, it's running two different sides. It's running what's on host 0, which the device that you clicked on, as well as what it's doing on the network and what it's doing spreading out there. So we're seeing typically it's already elevating its permissions. It's running an FLTMC, basically looking, hey, what do you have in your security stack on the system? What can it do? Trying to elevate itself. But at the same time, within seconds, it's starting to send out crypto worms, basically sending out worms to find other systems. And we're finding out typically within 2 minutes on a flat network, it's already captured or infected 80% of the other devices out there. Because of that initial attack point, security allows it to come in. It's going to be able to get to those other systems also because it's on a trusted network. It spreads extremely fast. New systems become infected. It starts moving laterally. It starts to probe around. It starts looking for the keys of the city. It starts looking for your domain controller, looking for DNS. It starts looking for, hey, your file shares, and then from there it starts looking for those production devices. It can then basically start to doing encryption anytime it wants. But we're seeing that the threat actors are being more patient because they want to get deeper in. They don't want just to get that 1 or 2 systems and get that small, $500, couple $1,000. They'd rather get that, $250,000, $500,000, or even $1 million or more we see out there. So they're getting in. It really depends. A lot of times they'll actually get to like this part right here, where basically they're moving around laterally. We'll see them get in so far credential havers, and then they'll actually sell to a larger ransomware gang, somebody who will take more sophisticated. So they'll actually take it, they're selling this information behind the scenes. And that's why a lot of times we've seen these attacks, they were actually going on for months. Like SolarWinds, they went and looked, it was actually going on for about 4 months before they thought it had. And then basically once it starts getting encrypted, that's when you start your investigation and remediation. Again, this is 100% being reactive. You're coming to it after the fact, after they've already gotten inside. That's the problem with our today's solutions, is because you're constantly going back and, okay, how did this come in? What do I need to do to fix it? Let me try and restore everything. You're doing cleanup. And when they get into your systems, they're also creating a tremendous amount of noise by doing these lateral attacks, these type of things. You're trying to figure out where it's coming from. Your EDR systems, you have them turned up so they're so loud, they're pouring in so much information, so hopefully you can correlate on this, but also too, it blinds you to the real attacks and what's going on. So a lot of times you can't see the back doors are going on, you can't see what's going on. You're going to send, plus also too, they're turned up so loud, so sensitive, that the best way to put it is normal day-to-day stuff gets triggered because it's considered risky behavior. Just for the minor results a couple of weeks ago, I was noticing a lot of other security vendors out there when I dug through the testing results and looked in the screenshots and the notes on there. I saw that they were flagging, Word, winword.exe, because it executed a VB script because it's risky behavior. Well, we already talked about, we know macros are being heavily used. We see them, in the medical industry, they're part of, post patient summaries. It's all different things, they pull information from different places that are useful, but instead of going through and setting up rules and saying, okay, I'm going to allow this application to write to this thing, they go through and kind of just a broad one, or turn off those protections, or just let it flood through and then just let it flood in. And one organization I was talking to a couple of weeks ago, they were getting over 500,000 alerts per week. Their staff can't keep up on it. Therefore, they're getting inundated with stuff. They're waiting for something to break so they can go back and take a look at it. We need to take a stance and say, we need to prevent this stuff from coming in. And guys, I know prevention's a tough pill to swallow because I was a former CISO. It was beaten into us. You can't prevent it. Better detect it and respond to it, know where it came from and shore it up. Well, I'm telling you, prevention is possible. Deep instinct is that solution. And that's what was hard for me to understand and grasp when I first, heard about the company. once I get my hands on, I see it. And our goal here today now is to show you the difference of what deep instinct can do and where we can go.
Yeah, Chuck, while you're on that topic, I mean, that does come up a lot in the conversations with our clients. And a lot of them tell us that the amount of alerting that you mentioned that's provided by their current products is constantly burning up resource cycles. Obviously, like you mentioned earlier, are in short supply. So they all want to know how Deep Instinct helps with regards to easing this scenario. By allowing their resources to be more productive and not chasing, down alerts all day long. So if you could touch on that later on, that'd be great.
Absolutely, and that's spot on, because right now it's estimated there's 400 to 500,000 open security positions in the United States, and it's not entry level; it's typically mid level. That's where it's really hurting right now. Globally, they're saying right now there's 5 to 6 million globally open. So security staff's getting burnt out. They're being reactive. They're being pulled someplace else because it's such a shortage. Other companies are backing up with, they're upping the compensation to try and draw people away and try and fill those holes as much as possible. So absolutely making your staff that you have right now more effective, giving them time back to be proactive and reactive. Absolutely, Deep Instinct does that, and we'll definitely dive into that here. So here with Deep Instinct, the key with Deep Instinct is that we are proactive, meaning that we actually look at the full file as it's being written to disk or as it's being written to memory, injected into memory. We look at the entire file and we make a decision based upon a new advanced AI called deep learning. It's different than the AI that the other security industry out there is touting, and that's machine learning. Yes, AI is, the overall umbrella. Think of that like the big circle. Machine learning is higher into there. Think of machine learning like a flow chart. It basically, if this happens, you go here, and it looks for patterns, and it's picked it up. So it's taken the industry's efficacy rate from about 30–40% up to about 70% with new and unknowns, because a lot of malware, a lot of these criminals are lazy, and they kind of copy other people's work and that type of stuff. So we see that. Problem is, as new sophistication, new attack vectors come in, it's not keeping up, and we're still seeing them get in. And hence goes back to that very first slide I had, talking about 80% of the attacks are from unknowns, and that's exactly the reason why. All right. So with us doing pre-execution compared to all the other solutions do post-execution, basically meaning that they wait for the file to be executed, wait for you to double click on it, wait for something to run it, then they start looking for it. So that gives you your performance issues, but it also puts that delay in there. The system has to start running, and a lot of these guys actually run their solutions in the cloud, has to go out to the cloud and come back again. That time that it takes to go out there and come back again gives that dwell time. And I showed up above here how fast those systems can be infected. So if you're waiting minutes, sometimes hours to come back, it's already too late. You need to get that preemptively and prevent that from even getting into your system and executing from there. That's a key thing there. So by basically us stopping it pre-execution, we're stopping all that lateral movement. We're stopping all that other stuff spreading out there. Your EDR, your SIM, your SOAR, all the stuff out there, all your alerts drop down. Our customers' real world data coming out there from when I talk to our clients and what I'm seeing out there is 25 to 60% reduction in alerts coming into their systems. Huge. That basically means that your teams now aren't having to stare at this stuff or respond to all these false positives, all these other alerts coming in, because we've reduced it down. We're giving them that critical time back. All of our companies that we've worked with and clients we've put in set it across the board that they don't have to worry because they know we're giving the front side. And more critical than that, we give them what's called a high fidelity alert, which basically means when something comes in, it pops up. They know, hey, Deep Instinct just alerted on something. This is real. And we need to go find it, where it's coming from. It brings that alert to the top of the table, the list from everything else. The key thing here to understand is with Deep Instinct, with our deep learning technology, which I'll really get into it, is our false positive rate. With our clients, it's less than 1%. It's actually a lot less than that, but from a marketing terms is we use less than 1%. I work with our clients. I see this stuff all the time. It is tremendously lower. And then also the alerts coming in have dropped. As I said, we just did another client and they just came back and it was They reported 40 to 60% drop, depending on the attack and what's coming in, of stuff coming in and hitting their console. So again, going back to being proactive, stop the threats as they're coming in before they even hit your system. Let's talk about how fast this is. So if we take 100,000 files, 53 gigs, how fast they can encrypt. This is after they've already gotten in, done all their backdoors, and they're getting ready to start encrypting. Most systems don't start alerting until they actually start seeing the encryption process starting. How fast can it happen? We'll start going through the different gangs here. May's been out there for quite a bit. They've hit, quite a bit manufacturing targets last year. Almost 2 hours to get, 53 gigs. Conti, another big one. They're relatively slow, but they're very prominent. They're about 50% of the attacks that we're seeing hit in the manufacturing industry now. Dark side, Black Matter, derivatives of each other. You can see how close they are. It's because they basically, one gang became the other. Our evil, they really got it down to 24 minutes before they were shut down. Well, now others have picked up that technology and they started picking up on it. Ryuk, Addon, Babcock. Now the big one here is Lockbit. Lockbit right here is the other 50% of the attacks that we see hitting manufacturing. They're down to 4 minutes. They're also the ones that just hit Snap-on Tools 2 weeks ago. Again, this stuff's happening faster. Not only are the alerts popping in, but how fast can your team react to it? You don't have, a lot of times you don't have eyes on glass 24/7. You can't afford it. It takes too much resources. You need a system that can stop it and get there. All right, deep learning to machine learning. Critical one here, guys, is machine learning typically looks at the raw data. It looks at about 3,000 to 5,000 files for a training session. A training session for most of these vendors out there takes about a week long. They look at the top IP header on the top part of the file. They do what's called manual feature engineering. Cylance back in its day, I knew some people over there. They had about 167 people working in the manual feature engineering, going through developing these on a weekly basis. Still people sitting there labeling malicious, benign, going through the code, getting in there for these new things coming in. They would then basically get the vectors, do the force model. This process right here would take them about a week and a half to get, then they'd go into QA. So a lot of times machine learning models don't come out for anything new threats for 2 to 6 weeks. And I'll show you a bit about that here. The accuracy rate though, with this, today's stats, 50 to 70%. I've seen a little bit creep up from there, about 72 to 73 at times, but typically around there, and the false positive is extremely high because a lot of the actions look like benign things. And so that's why we see a lot of the, a lot of the extra alerts coming in. And their updates, they update daily, but that update is actually from stuff that they had to learn weeks before that. Deep learning, what Deep Instinct's doing, we actually built from the ground up a new AI model utilizing a new framework built specifically for cybersecurity. Originally, there was only 5 deep learning frameworks 5 years ago when we started this. We actually created the 6th framework because in order to look at this, you have to be able to determine, between benign and malicious, but it's not the same as automated driving. It's not the same as voice recognition like, Siri and Google use. It's natural language recognition. This is specifically for cybersecurity. You have to have different models for different types. You have to have different model for PowerShell, different one for shellcode, different one for Java. You have to have that different. You can't apply it across the board like you can with machine learning. So Deep Instinct, we've gone and done that. We look at about 200 million samples per quarter. We look at the entire sample, build our model off of it, which is a deep learning model, which literally mimics the human brain. It can make a decision in less than 20 milliseconds. So when I talk about pre-execution, that's the key here, guys. We're actually blocking the file in less than 20 milliseconds compared to other solutions that have to go out and come back again. Accuracy rate, guys, over 99%. Proven facts tested, and false positive under 1%. To the point we actually put our money where our mouth is here, guys. Our accuracy, our false positive, we have a money back guarantee on that, as well as we have a ransomware warranty backed by Munich Re Insurance, basically for our clients, that offers $3 million if you do hit with ransomware. And since we've been running that now for 18 months, we've had 0 instances of any clients going to make a claim on that because they've been protected. So a big thing there. And then when we update, we only update 1 to 4 times a year. That's our brain. It's predictive, meaning that we train our stuff. It's been out in the field. What we're running today, the demo that I'll show you here shortly, it's actually running a brain that came out January 2nd. It was actually trained in December. Came out January 2nd. We're still using it, and here we're 5 months into the year already, and we're still using the same brain. That's how smart our brain is. Because think about it, our brain is literally, our algorithm is 8 years old. It's gotten more intelligent. Here just shows right here, these right here, when a new threat came out, how long it took other solutions to recover. I can no longer put the names on there. I was told to stop. At least I can share here with how long it takes.
So jump in for a quick sec, because we did get a question that I got privately through a chat, and I was asked if you could get into the key advantages of Deep Instinct over EDR solutions that use machine learning. But I'm very conscious of the time that we only have about 14 minutes left. So I'm not sure if this is something that you just go straight to the demo to show, or where you want to wrap up so you can still do your demo.
Absolutely. So
well,
we'll definitely
another question.
I'm
sorry. Another question I just want to throw out there is, before, because I know we're running on time, and I had a lot. I get a lot of this particular question. I get a lot from our clients. With regards to what you covered with the EDR, XDR, a lot of them seem to think that Deep Instinct doesn't displace EDR, XDR, that they need both. So we need to confirm whether this is a myth. I know it is. I know Deep Instinct can run on its own. So can you just clarify that before you at one point before you jump into the demo?
Absolutely. So from that perspective right there, guys, so this is me with my security hat on from being a professional. EDR and XDR, they all have a place in SIM. Deep Instinct, what we're doing is preventing things pre-execution. It can displace legacy AV out there extremely easy. A lot of our clients out there, they've put us in place and they've actually torn out some of their other solutions. But having something report back in for log aggregation like a SIM is critical, because it's collecting firewall logs, it's collecting agent logs from other devices, it's collecting in Windows logs, it's correlating it all together to help you kind of piece together, so it helps you with the investigation piece. So Deep Instinct will give you a high fidelity alert, hey, this just happened, but you can go back to your SIM or your EDR and look and see, hey, where did this come from? So from that perspective, yes, do you need to have those other solutions? Not necessarily, but they definitely aid because of security and depth, and it gives you that extra vantage point. Okay, where did this come from? Helps correlate the stuff and make your investigations faster. So can we displace it? Absolutely. We do it on a daily basis. We, especially legacy AV out there, meaning that basically the older solutions that no longer work, keeping up with things, absolutely. The new EDR solutions, they don't prevent. They come back in the response. They have some good prevention around known stuff, but they don't know the unknowns. 80% of the successful attacks today are unknowns, and that's where EDR is failing, where Deep Instinct really comes in, and that's kind of leads into my unknowns and zero days here. Just kind of go through this fast here, where we talk about, and the slide doesn't want to advance now. Okay, where we talk about, these are all preventions right here. We would have prevented. These guys are running full EDR stacks, but things still got hit. I went through and tested this personally, all the executables that hit on these guys. If we had been in the environment, we weren't. If we had been, we would have prevented these things with a brain that was over 9 months old. Kind of showing you how out there, again, they were getting hit with, these are new attacks, and we still prevented it. Good one there. As I said, I just talked about Snap-on. And these guys got hit October last year. They just came back and said, you know what, we've lost 42 million. The original ransom was only 2 million. So a big difference there. You don't want to end up with that. So with that, I will jump over here to just value real fast, and then we'll get into the demo. So the value here, basically, we're talking about prevention. We stopped 99% of the attacks, less than 20 milliseconds, and a $3 million warranty. SOC efficiency. Guys, this is where we see the most cost savings out there. When I talk to CISOs and CIOs on a weekly basis, this is the big thing right here. It's the false positives, but also is the reduction of alerts coming in. They're able to be proactive. They're able to go out there and patch their systems. They're able to look at things, get information, and basically prioritize where they need to attack. Optimizing it, and this right here, as we talked about your EDR impact, if you're using Splunk today, you're paying by alert. We actually can knock your bill down 25 to 60% because we're knocking the amount of alerts coming down. We're able to clear it up. And then you can focus on tuning and say, okay, figure out where all these other alerts coming from. Do they need to be coming in? We give you those high fidelity alerts to really come in, so you really focus in on that. Last thing here, cost savings. These are real world cost savings we see out here. Global manufacturer. This is just reimaging costs, guys. They had 141 systems last quarter that would have needed to be reimaging. For them, it was 63K they would have saved in just reimaging costs. This has nothing to do with help desk, SOC, or anything like that. This one here's a large college. Again, they would have had 229 systems. They saved 100,000 for a college that runs extremely lean. That was critical to them. This one's huge. MSP. They would have had 2,000 systems hit. This is just in January. I pulled these numbers. The CEO actually called me up and said, "Hey Chuck, this doesn't seem right. Something's off here." I would have had $1 million in savings in just reimaging. Again, his help desk stuff, he estimated about another 250,000 on top of that for troubleshooting, help desk, in those type of times. So with that, guys, I'm going to jump over here to our demo. It's just a quick demo to kind of give you an idea of what we're doing, and we're going head to head here with against Defender and just showing you what it looks like while we're on side there. So give me 1 second here, bringing this up, just sharing the screen here. All right. Jamie, can you guys see this okay? All right, okay. So, all right, so showing you out here, basically I have two systems here. There's two different screens split in half here. One side's running with Defender. The other side is running Deep Instinct. So what we're gonna do here is we're actually gonna drop down 500 samples onto the system and see how long it takes to react. This demo is actually 30 minutes. You can see the timer down here in the corner. We're showing you these updates. We just did this last night to show you in real time, showing that everything's turned on. And then from there, what we'll do then is we'll start dropping on these. Basically, we're running a script. We're going out to, I'm allowed to say the name, but basically a repository. We're grabbing 500 samples randomly that are less than an hour old. We're doing that on both sides, on both Defender side, and now we're running it over on Deep Instinct. On Deep Instinct, you can see that we already, as it's copying down, as it's copying in, you can see there, as it's copying down, it's detecting them and deleting them as fast as they come in. Here, you can see here's the unknowns and the known viruses that we pulled down. You can see that they're writing to disk, and we'll see what Defender deletes out of there. From our standpoint, you can see as they're being written, they're deleting. So as again, we're doing known viruses as well as unknowns, basically 0 days. One thing here, look at the memory that's being utilized for Defender compared to Deep Instinct. What we're running over here in our CPU. Our CPU, you can see on the Defender side is almost 50, 60% going up, averaging around 25 to 40%. Deep Instinct side, you can see here is still less than 1%, even because we run multiple different processes or filter drivers as this is going through. So as it's going through dumping down, Deep Instinct's preventing pre-execution. It's not even getting to disk. These guys are written to disk right now. And because Defender hasn't come back, you can go and click on that. People would be running the software almost immediately, showing you there. You can start seeing now Defender starting to pop up with some stuff out there. But you can see that, there's over 358 sitting here on disk, sitting here dormant, waiting for somebody to click on it as Defender's cleaning stuff up. You can see here on the known side too. Deep Instinct, as fast as it goes in there, it gets deleted. Coming in and out is constantly cycling through, and it's actually happening faster, but it's the OS that has to take a look at it because we're limited by kernel speeds. So kind of showing through here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to fast forward here a bit to kind of show you once we get here to about, well, here I can show you a little bit on the console here. So as we're showing here, as these guys are coming in, this is our console. This is actually what we're seeing. We're actually showing you the stuff that's coming in. You can see right here, everything's prevented. Nice and simple. These aren't alerts that would pop up showing you that, hey, something got through. This is different. This is just telling you on the backside, these got prevented, hit it by our static analysis, our brain. And again, we're doing this. This is 0 day stuff that we just literally downloaded last night that was less than an hour old. We're basically using a brain that's 5 months old, showing it's different. Defender is up to date as of literally right before we started the test. So you can see in the console, things are coming up. being popped up, and we're just logging it what's coming down. We also break down the classification. We tell you that, hey, this is 99% virus, it's got some worm capabilities, and it's got some dropper, meaning that that's some nasty stuff. That dropper is the one that drops in, the ransomware, other things that we stopped it beforehand, even before it comes in and can execute. So now if I fast forward here, if we kind of jump over here, and you can see, basically we're done at about the 5-minute, 30-second mark. We're done looking at all those files. But basically what we were limited by was the file transfer. As it was downloading it, we were blocking it instantaneously. As soon as it hit the disk, it hit memory, we blocked it. We're done. If you look here, Defender's still chugging away at it. Everything's downloaded. The script's done, but it's sitting on disk. Defender's now going out to the cloud and coming back using their machine learning. This goes the same thing for E3 or E5. Same type of mechanisms there. The only difference is it's it's sitting on disk here. You can see it that it's sitting there. As we look here, it'll start churning away at it. But right now, those files are sitting there. Anybody can click on them. Now, if we fast forward, when we go to the end here, you can see that all the files are there. Of the 500 files of known and unknown, if I go now 25 minutes out, you can see right here, 496 of the unknowns, which means 0 days. Defender stopped only 4 of them out of 500. Over here, 436 of the known, which are known stuff that, we have a repository for. Defender still letting it sit there. Defender over the course of hours and days will eventually whittle some of these down on the known side. The unknown side there, typically we don't see that drop below about 480. So that's the key thing here, and the critical thing here of why Deep Instinct's so different. This is just Defender. We can do this with any other demo out there. So with that, we'll jump over, and we're towards the end here, but we'll jump in and we'll do some questions.
Jamie, did you have any follow-up questions that you wanted to ask based on the feedback you've received from our customers?
I think he's muted. Jamie, you're muted. All right, we'll just jump in here. Yoni, do you see anything in the chat from any questions coming in from anybody?
No, no questions at this time.
Okay.
I
So
think
guys,
we probably should wrap. So any final remarks you have, Chuck?
Absolutely, that's what I was going to say here, so guys. So the main thing here, guys, is what I showed you here was a typical scenario that we see out there, what we're seeing day to day, showing you why EDR isn't, the other solutions out there today aren't. Deep Instinct and deep learning is the way for the future. Hence, why I'm here and why we're talking. So if you're interested in this at all, please reach out to Vandis or us, and we'll definitely get you set up with your own customized demo, walk through it with you, showing you that there is no smoke and mirrors here. This is 100%, what we're seeing and what we do on a day-to-day basis. So, but thank you very much, everybody, for joining.
Hey, Chuck, this is Jamie. I just got one more question. Just a yes or no. Do you consider Deep Instinct a disruptive technology when it comes to security?
Absolutely. I mean, that's exactly why I joined the company, because it was so disruptive. I mean, guys, just kind of give you an idea. I had a 3-month-old child and a 3-year-old when I quit another large company to come to Deep Instinct. That's how much I believe in it. And I've been here for 5 years because this is disruptive. It is different. It is going to change the direction, even to the point of Gardner has recognized that. And I'll leave that at that. But the MQ is coming out shortly. We should have some good news. So.
I feel the same way. So thanks a lot, Chuck, for giving us this presentation.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
That wraps us for today's session. Jamie and I would like to thank Chuck Everette for his presentation and the demo of Deep Instinct. We'd also like to thank all of you for joining today's webinar. We hope you found the information insightful on how you can take a prevention-first approach to ransomware and malware attacks. Also, as Chuck mentioned, if you'd like a private customized demonstration and discussion, please contact Vandis and Deep Instinct, and you can reach us at cloud@vandis.com, and we'll be in touch through an account manager. Please visit our website,